The courtroom was buzzing that morning. Judge William Alsup leaned back in his chair, smirking as if he was about to put Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett in her place. He raised his eyebrows, interrupting her mid-sentence with a sarcastic tone, clearly expecting the audience to laugh at his little jab. But Crockett didn't flinch. She paused, tilted her head slightly, and delivered a clapback so sharp that the entire room fell silent. Her words were precise, cutting through the smugness like a blade. What was meant to embarrass her instantly turned into a viral moment where Alsup looked rattled and caught off guard. Instead of shrinking under his mockery, Crockett doubled down with facts, confidence, and humor that left the judge scrambling. The spectators could feel the shift. The power in the room was no longer in his smirk but in her commanding presence. By the time she finished, Alsup had no comeback. He tried to change the subject but the damage was already done. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire, with headlines calling it one of the most unforgettable courtroom moments of the year. Crockett didn't just defend herself, she turned the tables and showed everyone watching what it looks like to fight back with grace and fire. Her savage clapback didn't just shut him down, it left him speechless. The silence after her words was heavy, almost uncomfortable. Judge Alsup shifted in his chair, pretending to shuffle papers, but everyone in the room could see his composure crack. His smirk had vanished, replaced by a forced expression of control. Reporters in the back exchanged wide-eyed glances, already typing furiously on their laptops. Cameras caught every second, zooming in on Crockett as she stood tall, her voice steady and firm. "Your Honor," she said coolly, "if this is your attempted humor, then perhaps you've forgotten the seriousness of this matter. I came here with facts, not punchlines." A murmur rippled through the audience. Some stifled laughter, others whispered to each other, but no one missed the shift in energy. Crockett wasn't just holding her ground, she was taking command of the entire courtroom. Alsup cleared his throat, clearly irritated that his attempt to embarrass her had backfired so publicly. But every time he tried to interject, Crockett met him with a calm, razor-sharp response that cut down his authority without ever raising her voice. It was no longer just a hearing. It was a showdown and everyone knew who was winning. Alsup leaned forward, his voice sharper now, hoping to re-establish authority. "Congresswoman, this isn't a campaign rally. This is a courtroom. Perhaps you should remember where you are." Crockett didn't flinch. Instead, she slowly turned toward him, her eyes locked on his, and let the silence hang for a moment. Then she replied with measured precision, "Oh, I know exactly where I am. And I also know that respect is earned, not demanded. If you think raising your voice will erase the truth, you've underestimated me." Gasps echoed across the room. Reporters were already whispering that Alsup had lost the floor. The judge's face turned red, and his gavel hit the desk harder than necessary. But Crockett wasn't rattled. She leaned into the microphone and continued with her evidence, her tone crisp, every fact striking like a hammer. Each point dismantled his narrative piece by piece, until even the people who came in doubting her were nodding in agreement. Alsup tried again, interrupting with another sarcastic remark. But Crockett's comeback landed like a thunderbolt. "Sir, if the facts make you uncomfortable, that's not my problem. That's accountability knocking at your door." The room erupted, some with laughter, others with applause they quickly stifled, but everyone knew the balance of power had shifted permanently. Alsup's knuckles tightened around the gavel as he slammed it again, louder this time, trying desperately to rein in the room. "Order. This is my courtroom and I will not tolerate grandstanding," he barked, his voice echoing against the walls. But the audience wasn't listening to him anymore. Their eyes were glued to Jasmine Crockett. She didn't even raise her voice, she simply leaned forward, calm and unshaken, and delivered another line that hit harder than any gavel strike. "With all due respect, Judge, grandstanding is what happens when someone runs out of facts. I still have plenty left." The crowd stirred. Reporters nearly jumped out of their seats as they typed. The moment was electric. Crockett had flipped the entire narrative. Alsup's face flushed deeper, his authority unraveling by the second. Every attempt to assert control only highlighted his frustration, while Crockett's poise made her look untouchable. She was no longer just responding to his mockery, she was dismantling it piece by piece, turning his courtroom into her stage. And the cameras didn't miss a thing. Within minutes, snippets of her words were being uploaded and shared. Tweets were flying out faster than Alsup could bang his gavel. In that instant, everyone realized what was happening. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just surviving the judge's attack. She was making history. Outside the courthouse, the air was electric. Reporters crowded together, their phones buzzing non-stop as clips of the exchange spread across every platform. Within an hour, hashtags with Crockett's name shot to the top of trending lists. News anchors scrambled to rearrange their evening segments, replaying the moment where Alsup slammed his gavel, only to be met with Crockett's calm, cutting reply. The contrast was undeniable. One man red-faced and rattled, one woman unshaken and commanding. On social media, users were already making memes, slow-motion edits, and captioned reels of Crockett's line, "If the facts make you uncomfortable, that's not my problem." Millions of views poured in. Comment sections lit up with people cheering her on, calling it the clapback of the year. Meanwhile, back inside his chambers, Alsup scrolled through headlines on his phone. The smirk he wore earlier was gone, replaced with a grim realization. His attempt to mock her had backfired so spectacularly that he was now the punchline. And Crockett? She walked out of the courthouse with her head high, cameras flashing around her like she was stepping onto a red carpet. Her voice had cut through the noise, and now it was echoing far beyond the courtroom walls. By evening, the political world was ablaze. Every major network replayed the clash on a loop, dissecting each line like it was a championship debate. Analysts leaned in, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others outright laughing at Alsup's failed attempt to belittle Crockett. One commentator summed it up bluntly: what Judge Alsup tried to do was flex authority. What Crockett did was strip it away with nothing more than poise and precision. Politicians couldn't stay silent either. Some praised her as fearless, calling her the voice people needed to see. Others, clearly rattled by her growing influence, tried to dismiss it as theatrics. But even their criticism only fueled the fire, because every mention kept the story alive. On talk shows, late-night comedians seized the moment. One joked, "Judge Alsup brought a gavel?" Jasmine brought the knockout. The audience roared. Meanwhile, regular people flooded social media with their own takes. Parents called her a role model. Students shared clips with captions like "goals." Even skeptics admitted she handled herself like a pro under pressure. What was supposed to be a minor exchange in a courtroom had exploded into a cultural moment. Crockett hadn't just silenced a smirk, she had shifted the spotlight, and now the nation was watching her every move. Back in her office that night, Jasmine Crockett sat with her team, the glow of phone screens lighting up the room. Notifications poured in faster than anyone could keep up. Interviews requested, invitations to primetime shows, and messages of support from all corners of the country. One aide grinned as they scrolled. "Congresswoman, you've officially broken the internet. Everyone's calling it the Alsup clapback." Crockett chuckled softly, shaking her head. "I didn't plan to go viral. I just wasn't going to let disrespect slide." Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from a colleague in Congress. "You made us proud today. Don't let up." She exhaled deeply, realizing this moment wasn't just entertainment. It was bigger. People saw her not only standing up for herself but standing up for truth in a space where too often power went unchecked. Her team debated the next steps. Should they lean into the momentum, book interviews, release a statement? Or simply let the clip speak for itself? Jasmine's answer was steady: "We don't chase the spotlight. We set the record straight. That's it." Still, even she couldn't deny the shift. She'd walked into that courtroom expecting a battle and walked out a symbol of resilience. The viral fame wasn't her goal, but it had found her, and it was only the beginning. Judge Alsup didn't sleep that night. His phone was a minefield of missed calls and messages from colleagues, many of them blunt: "You lost control. The clip looks bad. This is everywhere." The next morning he arrived at the courthouse with a stiff jaw, determined to reclaim his image. His allies in the legal world tried to downplay the viral storm. They called it out of context, insisting Crockett had been disrespectful, and that the judge had simply maintained order. But the public wasn't buying it. Every attempt to spin the story only drew more attention to the video itself, and every replay showed the same undeniable truth. Alsup mocked, Crockett clapped back, and he folded. Editorials piled in. One headline read, "A judge tried to smirk his way to power, Jasmine Crockett took it away in seconds." Another went further: "Alsup's gavel versus Crockett's clapback. Guess who won?" Even in private circles, allies whispered doubts. Was his credibility slipping? Had his arrogance finally caught up to him? Meanwhile, Crockett stayed quiet. She didn't need to say a word, the nation was already speaking for her. And every meme, headline, and replay only deepened Alsup's frustration. He hadn't just lost a moment, he'd lost control of the narrative. The fallout reached the streets. Within days, small groups of protesters gathered outside the courthouse holding signs that read "Respect the Truth," and Crockett spoke. We listened. What started as a handful of voices quickly swelled into hundreds. Petitions began circulating online demanding accountability for Alsup's conduct. Tens of thousands of signatures poured in overnight. Commentators noted it wasn't just about one exchange, it was about a judge who had symbolized arrogance, finally being checked in public view. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked protesters why they came. One woman answered simply, "Because when someone in power tries to mock the truth and gets shut down, we have to stand with the person who stood firm." National organizations started weighing in, calling for investigations into Alsup's behavior. His reputation, once untouchable, was now under a microscope. Every past decision he'd made was suddenly being re-examined with new suspicion. Meanwhile, Crockett kept her composure. She didn't rally the protest, she didn't lead the chants, but her silence spoke louder than words. The movement had grown beyond her. She had become the spark, but the fire now belonged to the people. And for Alsup, the gavel he once used to command respect now felt heavier than ever. The scandal hit its peak when national media outlets launched full-scale investigations into Judge Alsup's past rulings and courtroom conduct. Old transcripts resurfaced, showing moments where his sarcasm and dismissive tone had frustrated lawyers and witnesses long before Crockett ever stood in front of him. News panels debated whether this was an isolated embarrassment or proof of a deeper pattern. One analyst said bluntly, "This isn't about one clapback. It's about years of unchecked arrogance finally catching up." Colleagues in the legal community began distancing themselves. Judges who once praised Alsup now stayed quiet, while whispers circulated about him being a liability. Behind closed doors there were even talks of formal review. The pressure mounted daily. Every headline was worse than the last. Sponsors pulled out of legal events where he was scheduled to speak. A law school canceled his guest lecture, citing public controversy. Meanwhile, Crockett's approval ratings surged. Supporters saw her as fearless, and even those who hadn't followed her closely before now admired the way she handled herself under fire. For Alsup, the realization was devastating. What he thought would be a fleeting viral moment had transformed into a scandal with no clear escape. His career, once rock solid, now trembled on the edge of collapse, all because of one smirk and one woman who refused to be mocked. Jasmine Crockett didn't chase the spotlight, it came to her. Overnight, she became a household name, not just for her fiery exchange but for the calm strength she carried under pressure. Invitations poured in from major news outlets, talk shows, and even universities eager to have her speak. Her team carefully selected appearances, making sure every platform amplified her message rather than just replaying the viral clip. When she did appear on television, she didn't gloat. She spoke about accountability, integrity, and why it mattered that those in power never forget they serve the people. Her tone wasn't boastful, it was determined and it resonated. Viewers leaned in because she wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was speaking for everyone who'd ever been belittled by authority. In Congress, her influence grew. Colleagues who once underestimated her now sought her out, knowing she had both the public's ear and their respect. Supporters began floating her name for higher roles, suggesting she had the firepower to rise far beyond her current seat. Crockett stayed grounded. She told her team, "This moment isn't about me shutting someone down. It's about reminding people that no one, not even a judge, is above accountability." The clip might have started as a clash, but it had transformed into a movement. And Crockett, with her voice steady and her vision clear, was now at the center of it. Judge Alsup sat alone in his chambers, the blinds drawn tight against the flashes of cameras outside. His once proud desk, stacked with accolades and framed commendations, now felt like a stage set for a man playing a role he could no longer hold. Reports were coming in fast, another editorial blasting his arrogance, another petition calling for his removal. His phone buzzed with messages from colleagues who, instead of offering support, urged him to consider stepping aside before it gets worse. The pressure was suffocating. For the first time in his career, Alsup felt powerless. His gavel, the very symbol of his authority, sat on the desk before him like a relic of a power that had slipped away. He reached for it, then stopped, his hand trembling. Behind the scenes, whispers of resignation grew louder. Some advisors warned him that clinging on would only deepen the humiliation. Others insisted he fight back, but even they sounded unconvinced. Late that night, Alsup stared at the viral clip on his phone, the smirk, Crockett's clapback, his fumbling response. Millions had seen it. Millions had judged him. And no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't rewrite what the world had already decided. For the first time in decades, The once confident judge realized he was standing at the edge of an ending he couldn't control. The announcement came on a gray morning. Cameras swarmed the courthouse steps as Judge Alsup, looking smaller than anyone had ever seen him, walked up to the podium. His voice was strained, his usual confidence gone. After much reflection, he began, "I believe it is in the best interest of this institution that I step down from my position effective immediately." The words rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Reporters scrambled to capture every second, their headlines practically writing themselves, "Alsup resigns after Crockett clash, and judge brought down by viral showdown." Inside her office, Jasmine Crockett watched the broadcast with her team. She didn't smile, didn't cheer, she simply nodded, then turned back to her notes. "This was never about me winning," she said quietly. "It was about proving no one is untouchable." The nation, however, celebrated loudly. Social media exploded with reactions, from celebratory memes to heartfelt posts thanking Crockett for standing her ground. Commentators declared it a turning point in modern politics, a reminder that sharp wit and fearless truth could topple even the most entrenched figures. Alsup slipped out of the public eye that same day, his career ending not with dignity, but with a viral clip that would forever define him. And Crockett? She didn't gloat, but the world saw her differently now. She wasn't just a congresswoman. She was a force. In the weeks following Alsup's resignation, Jasmine Crockett's star only rose higher. What had begun as a viral moment had evolved into a powerful movement. Invitations flooded her office, from national conventions, grassroots rallies, and international forums. Advocacy groups sought her endorsement, knowing her voice carried weight far beyond her district. She became a symbol of standing tall against arrogance, someone ordinary people felt was truly on their side. Commentators noted the shift. One headline read, "From Congresswoman to National Icon, Crockett's Clapback Reshapes Politics." Another called her, "the future voice of accountability in America." Behind the scenes, political strategists began whispering about possibilities that once seemed far off. Higher office, leadership positions. Even talk of her one day being on a presidential ticket surfaced in think pieces and opinion polls. Crockett remained grounded. At rallies, she reminded supporters, "This isn't about one viral moment. This is about every time someone in power thinks they're above the people they serve. My fight didn't end with a clapback, it started there." Her words sparked roaring applause. The movement wasn't just about her anymore, it was about the values she represented. And with every step forward, it was clear, Jasmine Crockett was no longer just a rising star. She was a leader shaping the future. Years later, the clash between Judge Alsup and Jasmine Crockett was still remembered as more than a viral moment. It was a turning point. History books described it as the day a smirk met its match, the moment a powerful figure's arrogance was dismantled by truth delivered with precision. For Alsup, it was the end of a long career, his name forever tied to the gavel he lost control of. For Crockett, it was the beginning of something far greater. That single exchange had catapulted her from rising politician to national force, a leader people trusted to speak when others stayed silent. Her career blossomed. She took on higher roles, passed landmark legislation, and became known as one of the fiercest defenders of accountability in modern politics. Whenever she stepped onto a stage, audiences leaned in, remembering the woman who once silenced a judge with nothing but her voice. Crockett herself rarely mentioned Alsup by name. When asked, she always replied the same, "That wasn't about him. It was about reminding people that power belongs to the truth, not to titles." And that was how history remembered her, not as the congresswoman who clapped back, but as the leader who turned a single moment into a movement that reshaped the course of American politics.